Hello, my name is Dr. Jim Doty, and I'm the host of the Into the Magic Shop podcast, where we explore the mysteries of the brain and the secrets of the heart. Hi, this is Dr. Jim Doty, host of the Into the Magic Shop podcast. My guest today is Eric Stanley. And the reason he's on the show is because I ran across several, actually, posts of his on Facebook, and every one of them was related to promoting positivity. The interesting thing about Eric is that he plays the violin, but he grew up in interesting circumstances. He's Black. His parents divorced when he was young. He began playing the violin at 12 and really connected to it, but he also found that some people were quite cruel, questioning why a Black person would or could play the violin. At the end of the day, though, he realized that his mission was to inspire young people and to serve as a role model. Ultimately, this led to him founding One Way Hope and Stay Inspired Capital. He's also played the violin all over the United States and is a composer as well. So I hope you enjoy this conversation with a young man who has millions of followers on the internet, on various forms of social media, and whose main goal is for those listening to stay inspired. I hope you enjoy our conversation today. On another note, what's interesting is that it turned out several years ago, he actually ran across one of my internet posts and was inspired by that, which I didn't know about. So, hope you enjoy, and thanks for listening. Eric, it's great to have you with me today. I know this is about sort of the third time we're doing this because of technical issues, but how are you?
I'm doing really good.
One of the reasons I want to chat with you and sort of expose my audience to you is actually because of the work you're doing to inspire people, to highlight people who are doing good in the world. And in many ways, our mission is the same. So when I meet people who are trying to do that, it always interests me in terms of what motivates them to do it. Maybe you can tell me a little bit about growing up and your own background, and if what you're doing today is related to growing up or struggles that you've had in the past.
So I started playing the violin when I was 12 years old. And I only did it because my mom wanted me to take an elective in class. I was the shy kid. I didn't really talk that much. Some of my teachers actually thought that I just couldn't speak because I was just so quiet. And I remember going to Short Pump Middle School in Richmond, Virginia, and I would sit in the back of the class, and I could barely play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star on the violin. And I remember how it felt because most of the other kids could play Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and I could kind of feel some of the kids, laughing at me and making fun of me and things like that. But my teacher, she was one of the first people to believe in me. And she was really nice. She was a really nice teacher. Even though I was like, I didn't want to practice, she used to make us bring these practice slips home. And we had to practice like an hour a day or for 5 days a week. And we had to get our parents' signature. So one day I wrote down, I tried to forge my mom's signature and I brought it into class. And she could immediately tell that it wasn't a sixth grader's signature. And she didn't embarrass me in the middle of class and say, "Hey, Eric, you didn't practice." She waited until after class had finished. And she said, "Hey, Eric, I know you can do better, and I know that you can be better. And that was the first time I actually had someone like really like pour into me that wasn't my family.
So tell me about your parents. What did they do, or what was their background, and why? Maybe it's your mother who was the motivator behind you learning music.
So my mom, she is a singer, and we all grew up in the church. And my dad actually worked, he's still a nuclear engineer, and his first job was sweeping in the nuclear power plant. And he worked his way up to become a nuclear engineer. And my mom, she always was a singer, preaching, and things like that. And so I got to see music at an early age. She had a piano in the house, and we would play it every single day.
So I saw on the website One Way Hope that your brother had gotten shot. How did that affect you, or even what were the circumstances behind that?
So one day, my brother, he was on tour. He played backup as a pianist for a number of gospel artists at the time. And he was in Baltimore, Maryland, and he was going to the store, a gas station late at night, and these guys approached him, and they just shot him. He said it was part of a gang initiation to kind of prove that they were like, part of the gang. And that experience, when I heard the call to my mom's house, she came in the room and said, "Eric, I have some bad news to tell you." I think at that moment, my life really shifted a lot because that was the first time I ever seen or like experienced something that was really tough in my life. And it took a while for me to process those emotions. I felt a lot of anger, like, why would somebody do this to my brother? He's the nicest guy in the world. And I know it took a lot of time for my brother to heal from it as well. He didn't, at first, of course, he was angry. He was mad, and we were all angry and wanted to get revenge and be upset about it. But after about 3 years, he said, I forgive the guys who shot me. And I think, I was like, really? You forgive them? I mean, after all they did to you, how could you forgive them? And that really, I think it really opened me up to see a different part of the world, one that I had never really thought of before.
What do you mean by that exactly?
So I'm a kid, I'm just going through the motions, I'm playing violin, I'm in class. I didn't really have a big view of the world as a kid. I was just, my parents would just tell me where to go, and like, okay, we're going to church today, so I had to get my clothes on, my church clothes, go to church. And I didn't really have a lot of control about like what was going to happen. My parents got a divorce when I was like 3 years old. And I think that was the first time I realized like, okay, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on that I have really no say over. And when my brother got shot, that was even more like I just had no control over it. And it made me realize that the most important thing is really the time that you have with your family, because it happens so quick. One moment he's out the door, he's going on tour, playing piano, and then he's just, he gets shot. And something deep down told me that he was fine. He was going to be okay, which was the weirdest thing ever. It's like he got shot 8 times. The normal thought is he's not going to live through this, but he survived.
So, did you continue to have a relationship with your father after they divorced?
So there was a span of time where me and my father didn't really talk that much, except for during like, court proceedings and stuff like that, child custody. And so I saw a lot of friction early on. I saw a lot of negativity early on and constant back and forth. And I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew that something wasn't right in that moment. And I think that was probably one of the toughest things to get over. because me and my father, our relationship is so great today, but you would never know from all the time that was spent apart.
So what motivated you to start One Way Hope?
So what motivated me to start One Way Hope was I realized there wasn't a lot of positive news without like an agenda to it. It seems like when you see news, there's always some type of angle. Somebody's trying to promote something and trying to push some type of politics on someone. And I started One Way Hope initially with my brother, and then I asked my sister, I said, hey, do you want to be a part of this positive news thing? You know, and she didn't really know what it was. She was like, okay, look at Eric. He's trying to start some new thing. But she's always just down for whatever I got, whatever ideas I have. And I started One Way Hope because my brother would send me these Bible verses of like inspiration when I was in college. And the reason he would send me these verses was because he was in a rehab program that was like a faith-based rehab program. And so he was like reading the Bible and doing things like that. And he would send me these messages every day. I'm like, bro, why are you sending me these positive messages? And it would just be simple things like, you know, today is a great day. Be thankful for today. Things like that. And he said, hey, can you put this on my Facebook page? Because you can't have a phone in rehab and stuff. They want you to just be focused on getting clean from drugs and stuff like that. And when he got out of the rehab program, he had like 300,000 followers just from him sending me these positive messages. And I would just take the messages and just post them on his Facebook page for him. And so when he got out of rehab, he had like 400,000 people there who were just inspired by the things he was saying, and really inspired by how he was able to overcome an addiction, which is like heroin was one of the most hardest things to overcome from what he told me, you know?
So how many brothers do you have? Just one?
Just one.
So this is the same one who was shot 8 times.
Yes, yeah. So Marcus is yeah, he's a big part of my story. He really is.
Well, so was he sober by the time, at the time he was shot? Had he gone through rehab?
So he had never
was this
done
before?
anything before, no drugs, never had any addictions. But after he was shot, he was in immense pain. Like he had, you know, his bags on him and stuff, and he was trying to heal. And the doctors gave him all these type of pills, and we didn't really know about addiction and that you could get hooked on these things. So he started, you know, really taking these pills, these opioids and stuff daily, taking too much. Then he would run out and then try to get some more, and then they put a stop on it. And so he just started looking for something that he really couldn't find anywhere else. And I think until he stopped touring and focused on himself, he was able to really think about, like, how could he fix himself so that he could help other people too?
Good. So it sounds like that was somewhat of a journey for him, huh? How long, over what period of time was that?
So this was from 2001 all the way until 2012.
Oh, wow. That was a long time.
2012.
How old is he now?
He is 35.
Wow.
Yeah. Actually, he just turned 36. Yeah, he just turned 36. Yeah, I'm getting old.
Yes, aren't we all? So it sounds like faith and God have always been a part of who you are, and in some way maybe defines who you are. Is that the same situation with your brother and sister?
I think so. I mean, my sister, like, my mom she never made us go to church after a certain age. She wasn't like, oh, you got to go to church. She would just let us make our own decisions. So at that moment, I wouldn't say that that's their identity or even my identity. I think for whatever reason, Marcus was placed there to guide us along this journey, right? I try to think about I try to be very, very careful with like labels and things like that, because they kind of box you in, put you in this like box where it's hard for other people to understand you. And so when we started When We Hope, we didn't want it to be like this thing where only this type of person can listen to this, or only this type of person can watch this, or we're only trying to reach this one person, because we realize there's so many people in the world that can be inspired by something. And I always remember what it felt like to be uninspired, to not be able to see my future. I remember days when I was in college and I was like 20 years old, and I would just be in my dorm room just thinking like, I can't see my future. I don't know where I'm going. And that was like one of the worst feelings ever. And so that's something that propels me to make these videos too, because it's more of a sense of purpose. I've traveled all over the world. I've played violin. I've done a lot of things. And I reached a point where I was like, okay, what's next? There's got to be something more to just, making money and living and trying to be famous. I was trying to be famous when I was in college. I was trying to be like the most famous violinist in the world. And I guess I kind of reached it, but then at that moment I was like, okay, that doesn't really matter. And like, people don't, when I leave this earth, that's not going to be something that's important.
Well, I think probably for a lot of people who may have heard you or been inspired by your music, that can be very important. But I think I understand what you're saying. I think maybe it's a larger mission than just music, and how that resonates with people, but also really how can you change people's lives by inspiring them? What so obviously you're doing One Way Hope, but how did you get into finance? Were you interested in finance in college? Is that what you studied?
I took 2 years in college to pursue music, but I wasn't really motivated to play classical music on the violin. I wanted to do stuff that was like freestyling and hip hop and R&B music on the violin. So I dropped out of the music school at VCU after 2 years, and then I switched to business. And I specifically went into a degree. It was brand new. It was called Interdisciplinary Studies. And you could kind of like pick whatever class you wanted with the approval, obviously, of the dean and stuff. You couldn't just go and just pick random stuff, but it had to be lined up with your major and like the 2 focus areas. So mine was music and business. So even though I dropped out of the music program, I still kept playing the violin. I still kept practicing. I still kept traveling with it as well. But I also took classes that talked about entrepreneurship and business and finance. And I just like doing it because I like expanding my mind, learning new things, and really doing things that I didn't really think was possible.
How many, I assume you still practice the violin every day?
I play every week pretty much. I don't practice as much as I used to. I used to practice about 3 hours a day for 5 days a week. But I've slowed down a bit. I think one of the things with music, at a certain point, it became a job, and I didn't really like that. I always liked playing the violin just because I like to have fun. And as I started to progress in my music career, I had all these agents and managers and things like that, and it just became not fun. And when I took a break from it for about a year, when I came back to it, I realized why it's important for me to still play the violin and still spread music. It's because I realize it's helping people. Sometimes you can't really see everybody, especially on the internet and stuff, until you're like in a different city, and then somebody comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, I see you play the violin. It really inspired me." I've seen people say things like they were inspired from a video I posted 10 years ago of me playing the violin. I'm like, wow, you remember that?
Well, I think, the reality is that you don't appreciate that sometimes maybe playing the violin or saying a kind word or helping somebody can have a huge impact on them that you may think, oh, well, I was just doing that to be nice, or I was just doing this for fun. But these little connections that people have with the work that you're doing can really be profound. I mean, I've had many people myself come up to me and they'll say, oh, do you remember when we met and we talked about this? And unfortunately, I'll have zero recollection of it.
Yeah.
But for those people at that time, whatever it was that we talked about resonated with them. And for many people, it changed their lives. And so, I think you always have to keep that in mind, that in some ways you have a gift that connects with people, and that connection is one that has the ability to change people's lives oftentimes. So explain to me the different things you're doing. You have One Way Hope. Tell us what that is and how to connect with that. Then Stay Inspired, and then Inevitable Capital. How do they intersect? Do they intersect? Fundamentally, do they all have the same mission? So maybe you can explain to the listeners about how, one, what they are, two, how they can connect with it if they're interested.
So I've started a lot of things and failed a lot of things too. And actually, Inevitable Capital was one that failed about a year and a half ago or so. And I ended up switching that, and I just made Stay Inspired Capital purchase that. And so now everything is just Stay Inspired Capital. But the company started because me and my business partner, who's also another violinist, his name is Daniel Davis, and he was trading stocks, and I was like, oh, that seems pretty cool. I've never seen that before. Like, what is the stock market? I had never heard about the stock market, and this was back in 2017. And we had played violin together on different gigs around the country, and he sent me a video, and he was talking about algorithmic trading, which is like computerized trading where you can like automate different things within the stock market. And I started coding when I was in college in my junior year. And on my free time, I would just learn about Python programming language. I would study for loops. Then I would study variables, how to make the code faster, how to make it quicker. And it kind of felt like playing the violin. It's something I wasn't good at first, but I just kept doing it. I wasn't really trying to do anything with it. I just like learning new things with it. And he told me about his strategy with trading stocks. I was like, let me see if I can code that in a computer and try to automate that. So I worked on it for about 3 years. Nothing worked, nothing happened, and I left it alone. And then it started working, started gaining revenue once I just stopped focusing on it and just let it just run.
So this is a thing now. I mean, is this just your money or other people's money, and what do you do with the profit? Is it just really profit oriented to support your work, or what are you doing?
Well, I didn't want to do anybody else's money yet because I wanted to see if it works for a number of time, at least like 5 years. If I did if I came out and said, hey, I want to trade somebody else's money, I only did it for 2 years. They kind of be like, well, I need some more time. So I want to see what happens throughout different market cycles, and then I might think about opening up. But currently it's just me and Daniel working on it.
So how long have you been doing this for, and what are your returns so far?
Okay, so I've been doing it for, with real money, I've been doing it since February 1st. And so the returns are 20.89% till today. And then the interesting thing is, I wasn't really trying to do anything extraordinary. I wasn't trying to put on a lot of risk. Wasn't trying to do anything that was like gambling or anything. But I started to think about studying each trade and really measuring the performance. It made me think about the rest of my life in terms of measuring my day-to-day. How do I get up in the morning? Do I take a walk before I just jump into what I'm doing, playing violin or practicing? And as you start to measure the performance of an algorithm, what you realize is it's not so much random, but when the emotions get heightened up, it can become random. And as you look at the P&L, you can make decisions that really you wouldn't make in hindsight.
So let's talk about sort of your life philosophy at this point based on what you've learned. How would you characterize that in 1 or 2 sentences?
Life lesson?
Yeah. I mean, I think people are interested in what are the drivers of your behavior, and in some ways, you're talking about P&L statements, but what do you see as the upside, or what is the benefit from what you're doing?
I wanted to get into finance because I didn't want to have the pressure of inspiring people and trying to get something from them. I wanted to just have finance to be something that I just did for work, but not really the main part of who I am. I think it's important to focus on how you can give to someone else over than what you can get. It's kind of interesting. Somebody asked me, they were like, "Hey, do you sell the Stay Inspired hats?" And I was like, I don't really know, I guess. I put it up on the site, but I'm not trying to take anything from anybody. If anything, the reason why I put the hat up was I wanted people to know how I felt when I was uninspired. When I was like, when the kids made fun of me in class because I couldn't play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, or when I failed out of college, out of music college. I wanted people to know like how it felt to be uninspired. My parents got a divorce and I felt all alone. I felt like I was the problem at the time. Because I know everybody has different experiences that causes them to be uninspired, pretty much. If I can just make a video, if I can talk to somebody for a few minutes, if I can play a tune on the violin, I think that right there, that really makes my day.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you follow the Dalai Lama, but basically he says, if you want to be happy, be compassionate. If you want others to be happy, be compassionate. And in many ways, helping others, being of service, not only benefits the other person, but frankly, it benefits you a lot.
Yeah. I got a question.
No questions.
No question.
What would you like to know, Eric? You can interview me now.
So I actually saw your video on YouTube years ago. It was like a Google Talks.
Ah.
Yeah, it was a Google Talks. And I was actually the first time I heard you. And then when I got the DM message, I was like, I remember you. I remember you. I remember you from all those years ago. And, 12 years ago, I was pretty much, in college trying to figure out life. And yeah, you definitely inspire. You already know this. You inspire a lot of people to keep going. And there's a reason why I wanted to jump on this podcast with you, because I knew that it could inspire somebody else.
Well, I think that it is important to try to be of service. You were talking about this issue about selling your hats or trying to make money. I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with making money. It's if, though, you're looking through the lens of I'm offering these individuals something that they want, and I'm, if you will, selling it for a fair price, versus not having every action you take as an action to maximally extract from people. And I think that's the difference. So that's what I try to do. I don't think there's anything wrong with making money, living a good life, but hopefully it returns to you in other ways, not only because you feel better and your physiology works better, but also all the other things you may want, I think you get if you're focused on caring for others or being of service to others. You know, this is part of the problem sometimes. Have you ever seen this book called The Secret?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, and what is The Secret about? It's under this false notion that Western society has that promotes this narrative that if you, in some ways, are selfish, focus on yourself, want power, position, and money, that's going to make you happy. And I'm sure you realize, as did I early on, that while I strove to accomplish all of those things, it left me empty. And what finally filled me was the realization that I had the capability to inspire people. And by doing so, it came full circle and benefited me an incredible amount.
Yeah, it's powerful. Yeah, it really is powerful. You never know who you can inspire. You never know who's watching it. And what's interesting about today is usually people are watching on their phone. It's just one person. It's not like an audience of people watching it at that time. It's a kind of a personal experience when somebody's watching something online now. And I think I realized that when I had graduated from college around 2015, I realized that I had to be more critical of my words and not just talk without really thinking about how it impacts somebody. Not that I was doing all that and going crazy, but it just made me think about the things I say. How does it affect this person? How does it impact this person? Does it make this person feel excluded? And as I started to think about that, I think the message of Stay Inspired was able to reach more people because I took off all the labels, black, white, this, Christian, Muslim. I took all the labels off and I just said, here's this person and here's who they really are, not what the media tells them they are, not what the news, not what a country says they are. It made me realize that was more important than what everybody thinks that they are.
Why do you think that so many younger people either want to be quote unquote influencers or they listen to influencers on social media?
I think it's because it's what they see around them. When I would go to schools and play violin and talk to them about what it's like to be a violinist, I would ask the kids, hey, what do you want to be? And they would say, oh, I want to be a YouTuber. And I said, what does that mean to you, a YouTuber? Right? And they said, well, I want to rap. I want to sing. And I said to one kid, play me something. Do you got like a song or something I can hear? And he gave me his Instagram. He was like, here's my Instagram. It had like one picture. And I said, where's your music? Let me hear something. Just one. All I need is one. He said, I can't put it up because I'm afraid that it won't get enough likes. And I thought about that. I was like, man, he doesn't want to share his gift because of what some programmer made in Silicon Valley, right? He made a little thing that says heart or like, and he doesn't want to share his gift just because of that. And because of how his peers will look at it, just because of the like number or comments. And I thought about that and I said back to the kid, I said, you have to put yourself out there. You have to do it. You can't worry about what anybody says. You can't worry if it has enough likes. You can't worry if it's going to make you $1 million or if it's going to fit you on the street. You just got to do it because it's your calling. It's what you're supposed to be doing. And your life will work out once you follow behind what you're supposed to be doing on this planet.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with so many people, though, is they're terrified of being judged by other people. And I think, unfortunately, some of the people who are influencers think that they have to be perfect. So they use all these filters or they use all of these techniques that make them look like they've solved all the world's problems for themselves and that they live a perfect life and everything is peachy. And of course, for many of these individuals, they're just like you and I. They have to live in the real world. They suffer, they fail, but they don't want anybody to know that. So they sort of try to wipe out everything that's not in the picture perfect scenario they want to paint. But again, it's very toxic for a lot of people who are watching because they get confused that these people have figured it all out. And in fact, I've met many of these people, and some of them are frankly miserable. And in fact, if you use filters to change how you look, if you lie about every action that you're doing in the hopes you'll get more likes, now you're leading a completely empty life.
Yeah. I think the kids, they really need to know because they're more impressionable when it comes to social media. Not to say that an older person can't be impressionable, but as a kid, their mind is still like growing and learning things. And all they see is every kid in my school has a phone. And they all have all these social media apps. And they're all trying to appear, like you said, their best version, but that's not really who they are. It's just a projection of who they are, right?
Well, I think it's a projection of who they want to be, not actually who they are at all.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yep.
So tell me more about One Way Hope and what you're trying to accomplish with that. And I think what you have, is it 12 million followers?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So did you plan on having so many followers? Is this just an organic process, or tell me a little bit about it, what your goal was in terms of starting it, and then how it expanded to have this many followers?
Mm-hmm. So I think it expanded further as I started working with different people and talking to different people and really connecting more with people, not just being like, oh, hey, I'll give you my number, I'll shoot you a text every now and then, but actually like really getting to know who people are. And One Way Hope, obviously it started with my brother and all the things that we had went through, but I think it continued because my family started to work on our relationship more. And not what you were talking about earlier with like trying to appear as though everything is fine. We actually really started talking about really difficult things that happened in the past. And for a long time, we kind of just ignored them, the divorce, the shooting, all these things. We just said, oh, that's just stuff that happened in the past. But we never really talked on a deep level, like, for example, like, how are you? Like, how are you doing today? Like, are you good? And I think One Way Hope started to expand as I started to be more just myself and not trying to be like this perfect thing or trying to have a hit song or trying to be anything really. And I started to interview people and started to talk to more people. And I realized that so many people have a story that people need to hear, but they may not have, the platform to be able to deliver that message. And so I've interviewed about, so far it's like 60 people, just about. So far, just, I guess, like calls like this with me and you.
So we'll put this on your One Way Hope channel.
What do you say?
I said we'll put this video on your One Way Hope channel.
What really why did I want to do this interview?
No. I'm just saying that our interview we can put on One Way Hope to inspire other people.
Oh, yeah. So, I really wanted to put this out here because I knew that people could be inspired by you and by your book, Into the Magic Shop. I think it definitely inspired me, and I think it can inspire a lot of people. I know reading is not like something that a lot of people do, especially younger people, because I got 2 nephews. I haven't seen them crack open a book, but I know they try to learn. They try to get better at learning different things and stuff like that. But I knew that your story, how you grew up and the things that you went through, I think other people might not have the same story, but there's people that go through things, but they never really share it with anybody. They never say like, hey, I went through this. Hey, my parents were fighting. You know, people don't talk about having families who are alcoholics. Like, people don't talk about these things, and they just kind of just sweep it under the rug, you know?
No, I think you're right, and it's sad because, you know, this may sound strange, but I used to think that everybody's life was perfect but mine. That, you know, they didn't have the same type of arguments, or their father wasn't an alcoholic, et cetera, et cetera. But, you know, even in very affluent families, there can be very significant suffering of the children who are having to live in those experiences. And it's maybe a different type of suffering, but it still can be a very profound type of suffering, which results in them, you know, carrying baggage around for their whole lives. And I think one of the most important things is to be able to live authentically, in the sense that you're okay with yourself. And what I mean by that is, as you probably know from my book, you know, I never went around and advertised either that I was poor or my family situation because I was ashamed. And I think, again, it gets back to what we were talking about earlier, this whole issue of being judged and then being terrified that people aren't going to like you. And for me, I found that finally, when I was able to sit with that and not be ashamed of it, then in many ways everything changed. Because if you're out there open and honest, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks. And at the end of the day, we're the ones who decide if we're okay. And this is the problem: is so many people go around and they keep looking for external affirmation. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to sit there and say, listen, I understand, I appreciate I'm not perfect. I appreciate I've made mistakes. I appreciate I will continue to make mistakes. But, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a nice person. I'm a good person. And I'm okay with myself. But I think that's, for so many people, such a difficult journey of acceptance. And for some people, they're terrified of that. But, you know, it's funny. I have given a lot of talks, and I tell these personal stories that are quite painful, frankly. But what's interesting is, as soon as my voice cracks or I shed a tear, then suddenly I've given permission for everyone to get deep in themselves and feel those same emotions. And I think that's really, really important in terms of what we do.
Yeah, it is super important. Yeah.
So what is it that you hope to accomplish at the end of, or as you continue with this work that you're doing? I mean, is it to inspire as many people as possible? Is it to form a movement? Or maybe even, how can we work together to make the world a better place?
What I want to do is, I want to remind people that there's good things happening in the world, because what is at the forefront is nothing but just tragedy, negativity, constant back and forth between different races, between different groups. And I think as that's plastered more in the front, it makes people forget about the people that are doing really great things for others. And I think watching negative news over and over every single day, it has a bad impact. It has to. It's just no way that it can be something that is good for you.
Well, I think, you know, part of the problem is, one, if you report good things happening all the time, nobody's interested. I mean, you know, if you have food in your cupboard and all the resources necessary and tons of friends, you sort of are fat and happy. And you don't react. But if there's a narrative created that is negative, that represents a potential threat, then that gets your attention and you turn towards that, because that's how we're designed, right? We're not designed to avoid, or I should say, we are designed to avoid threat. And the problem is that that's because of that design, that's what we turn to. And media companies, their goal is to make profit, and that is through creating narratives that create threat. And sadly, that's where we're centered, because I think you'd probably agree 95% of people and 95% of the things going on in the world are actually good things. It's just, though, we're always focused on the most negative things.
Yeah. Now, I noticed how when I would have a friend or a colleague come up to me and I would say, "How's your day been? Your week been good?" or some stuff like that. And they would be like, "Oh man, it's all right. But did you see what happened over here? This bad thing that happened?" They would just dwell on it and just keep going and keep going. I started to notice how that would have an effect on me and just my overall mood for the rest of the day. And that's the reason why I get on and make videos and I edit it and make sure like the message is as clear as possible. And each video, I'll spend months working on it, and I'll just picking it apart, making sure it's like, the most inspiring video somebody can see. I think it's interesting because as we think of video, it's moving pictures, right? I think video can have even more impact than a picture sometimes. People would just glance at a picture, but a video, it can imprint in the mind over and over and again. And if it's negative, that's where it goes. If it's positive, it goes that direction. And I don't say like negative is a bad thing. It's not because there are things that happen in the world that I think, we should know and be informed about. But I think we can add in, some of the good too.
Well, no, I agree with you. And people actually like that on one level. Obviously, apparently 12 million people do in terms of your followers, because that is what connects you to people when you tell these positive stories, because it also, I think, gives people hope that their own situation has the ability to turn around, or that other people have struggled and gone through similar circumstance and they've been okay. And I think the type of messages that you're promoting and other people promote are really something that the world really needs and wants and connects with. And anything we can do to counteract the toxicity and the negative effect. I mean, you only need to look into the political situation where, you have people who promote hate and separation of people, instead of understanding that we're all in this together. And it's interesting how sometimes they demonize people for things that are out of their control, and whether it's race, whether it's sexuality, whether it's sometimes religion, that all of these people deserve love and acceptance. And especially if they're not interfering with your world. And it fascinates me how people immediately jump on this bandwagon of saying, well, you have to do what I think is right, or how I live. And, it just seems, it's sad because it separates them, and it's not fair to other people.
Yeah. I wanted to give people a chance when I would do an interview with people, to tell their story, like what they've been through. And even though the interviews will be like 30 minutes to an hour, it's just 3 minutes. And sometimes it's hard to figure out, what do I put in? What do I take out? Because I don't want to take out the story, but I know I just want to pack in 3 minutes into this video, because sometimes it's hard for people to watch a long video.
Sure.
On Facebook, especially Facebook, sometimes it's hard. And I've been leaning more towards just leaving it in and just leaving everything up,
And is that your goal to continue this work? I mean, is that you now, or is this a temporary thing as you look for the next job, if you will, or is this what you're committed to at this point?
This is what I'm committed to, because I realize how good it made me feel to see somebody. Before, I would have somebody come up and they would be like, "Oh, I've seen you play the violin. I think you're famous." And now it's more so that story that you shared was very inspiring and it changed my day. When I get that, I'm like, oh man, it really changes my day too, to see those responses from people. It's more of it's less of like ooh, I see this guy, he's famous, and more of, I like what you're doing because it inspires me to keep going. It's different.
So tell me one or two instances in your interviews. What were the ones that were most inspiring to you? I mean, what made you sort of stop and sit there and say, oh my God, this is extraordinary? I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
Oh, yeah. I'm trying to think which one was the best. Because they were all really great interviews. There was a man, his name is Daniel Parsons. And he was in Baltimore one night, and he saw a guy next to a tree, and he had a rope, and he was about to hang himself, but he couldn't really see, so he started filming him, just for his protection, so that, nobody could say like he did anything, over here. And as he started to film him, he realized that this guy was trying to hang himself. He saw the rope, and he said, don't do it. Don't end your life. And in that video, the guy said, nobody cares about me. And in the moment he said that, his phone was ringing, and it was his mom calling. Like, she was calling him the whole time, like, please, 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 like, answer the phone. He was like, man, nobody cares about me. I'm out here, it's in the dark, nobody cares. He said, somebody cares about you. He said, somebody's calling you right now. And the guy just started like breaking down, crying. And, it's amazing because he was there at the right moment. And, I really thought about sharing his face and like what he looked like. But I knew he was still in like a healing journey. Cause I remember what I'm sorry.
All right. I understand. It's okay, Eric.
I'm sorry.
No, take your time. But, this is the power of these types of stories. They profoundly affect you. Obviously, this has affected you, but the reality is that story hopefully will inspire others. And again, it's interesting. I recently gave a talk, and the group who asked me to speak, they said, we're going to create a bench in your name. And I said to them, for what? What do you think that will do? And it's a place where those who are suffering or need someone to listen to them can come and sit down. And the nature and the purpose of that bench is to invite others to be there for them. And, in some ways, what you're doing is you're offering that bench to sit on that let people see the impact of being kind, being generous, being thoughtful, being compassionate. But maybe you can tell us the rest.
Yeah, it's my bad. I'm sorry.
No. Listen,
I'm sorry. Yeah,
but
it just. I was gonna say the story really reached me because that's exactly how my brother was. He was out in the streets. He was just on drugs. Like, he thought nobody cared about him because family got divorced. My dad was out, he was gone, and family was broken apart. He just felt like nobody cared. And, my brother, he had times where he would be out and would be calling them. Like, I'd be like, where you at, bro? Like, where you at? Like, I need to know where you're at, man. And that story, when Daniel had, posted the video, of course he was worried about people saying, oh, you just recorded this for clout. You just recorded this because you wanted to be seen. And I thought about, he said that in an interview. And I was like, why would somebody say this, right? Because he's showing people what's really happening out here. Not the stuff that you see, in the highlight reels, but actually what people are actually going through. And he ended up helping the guy, and, he put him in a rehab program. People started reaching out. Steve Harvey, all types of different influencers or celebrities, people who can, like, just at the drop of a hat, just do something. And I know his journey's not over, the young man he saved. And something made me want to, I had this interview for a year, but I had never edited the video. I just had it done. I just kept watching the video. I kept watching it. And I didn't really know how to tell the story. But then one day, after a year, I woke up and I was like, I think I want to share this story. I was afraid of sharing the story because I didn't want to, like, touch on suicide, because I felt like that might make people, like, want to commit suicide or make them think about it more or something like that. And I called my brother, and I asked him, I said, do you think I should put this video? I don't really know. He said, I think you should put the video up because there's people going through exactly what I went through, which is feeling like you don't matter.
Well, I think in some ways it brings us full circle to make us realize that everyone matters and we matter. And it's forgetting that we matter. And again, believing this narrative that no one cares about us. And I can't think of really anyone who no one cares about. And any human life, in fact, any life in general, is worth protecting, supporting. And I think it is our job to promote the thriving of all of us, if it's within our capacity. But as you're already finding out, I think all people need is just a little bit of inspiration. And it can be a word, it can be just taking the time and looking somebody in the eye and letting them know you care, that changes everything.
Yeah. There. I don't know. You made me cry. Dr. Doty. Made me cry, man. A lot of people actually. My brother was the only person that could make me cry like that, man. But
that's okay.
It was good. It was great tears. It's like you helped to, like, paint. You know how to paint a picture. I don't know how you do it, but that's a gift. You just know how to just.
Well, it's funny you say that because in some ways, I have people who work with me and they'll say, well, that's really your superpower because you bring people to their heart. And on the one hand, it can be painful, but on the other hand, it makes you feel, and it makes you feel deeply, and it makes you hopefully inspired to keep doing what you're doing and to be a better person and to help others. And I think you're already there, but it's still okay for me to make you cry.
It feels like the Michael Jordan meme, the crying meme, where he's like, I can't believe y'all gonna make me cry. at Kobe's funeral, he was like, but Kobe, he's the only man who could make me cry. Because they were going to turn it into a meme on the internet. But yeah, I realized, you know, I realized it's good to cry. You know, it's like, I think people make fun of you for being human, especially guys. I think it's more so they feel like, oh, you're supposed to be tough, man. Like, you can't be, you know, can't be there crying.
Well,
sad.
And that's the sad thing, is that people believe that. As I told you, you know, I mean, when I give a talk and when my voice cracks or I shed a tear, that gives everyone permission. And it's interesting. I was giving a talk one time in Sun Valley at a wellness festival, and there were about 250 people in the audience. And again, I broke up in some ways telling this story. Suddenly the whole room is crying.
Yeah.
And then a woman comes up to me afterwards. She says, you know, I was so moved by your talk. And everyone was waiting around there. And I gave her a hug, which then led to me giving 250 hugs to all the people. Because that connection and that emotion, and when you share that with somebody, it's really, really powerful, and it helps them. And again, that's what our mission is, to be of service and to help each other. And I think that's really important. So, Eric, I am hopeful that we are able to stay in touch and connect and maybe even do some projects together. And I'm glad I was able to make you cry today.
Yeah. Absolutely. I enjoyed this this interview. It's a pleasure to actually be able to talk to you.
Well, that's
after so many years. You know, you never know who you're gonna run into. And then when Hillary, she sent me the DM, I was just, you know, my brother, he checks some of the stuff, and he's like, "You got an interview. Somebody wants to interview." And I was like, "What is it about?" You know, because I'm just so busy with stuff. But he said it's Into the Magic Shot. I was like, I read that book when I was in college. What? But it said James, and I'm like, what? Jim? No, Jim Doty. You know. So it threw me off for a bit. But yeah, you have an amazing. You already know this. You have an amazing thing that you've been doing for years, and I feel more people can still see more of what you're doing.
Well,
and the message that you're spreading.
Well, that's really kind of you. Just to throw out a couple things for self-promotion, which I didn't really anticipate doing, but I think one is I do have a new book coming out. I don't know if you've seen it. It's called Mind Magic, the Neuroscience of Manifestation and How It Changes Everything. And in many ways, that's the antithesis of The Secret, which is oriented around me. And my book is the antithesis of that. It's about how can I be of service? And if I'm of service, I, at the end of the day, get everything I want. So it's the difference between understanding what you want may not be what you need. And then the other thing is, which we sort of peripherally touched upon, is, you know, how so many people are afraid of being judged, and this creates an immense amount of stress, anxiety, and depression for a lot of people. And one of the things I've been working on the last 18 months is actually creating an app to support people and to act as, if you will, a trusted friend. And that's called Happy, HAPPI .ai. And but it's very, very different from these traditional apps because, one, it actually analyzes your emotion throughout your conversation, and it has a conversational AI knowledge base focused on psychology and compassion-focused therapy, which actually is combined with a human avatar. So you may want to take a look at that. But we're going to be launching it in January, but one of the focuses is on individuals, adolescents who are suffering, and hopefully it will give them support and tools when they do feel like no one cares.
Wow, this is amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna look out for it. It's called Mind Magic, right?
That's the new book, Mind Magic.
Okay.
You can pre-order it right now. It comes out May 7th. And then,
Oh, May 7th?
yes,
Mind Magic. Get Mind Magic May 7th.
exactly. And then,
Get Mind Magic May 7th. Yeah.
and then happy.ai, HAPPI.ai. And
How'd you come about Happy?
you mean the name?
Well, with just the idea, like how did that come about?
Well, frankly, I never know how my ideas come about. I have no idea where this second book came from. It just sort of happens, and I just go along with it. And in some ways, it's what we're talking about. There's a thing that sits with us, and it's there. And if we listen to it, it guides us along. And I think if we have at least try as best we can to have a pure heart and listen to what we're being told, then magic can happen. And not only for you, but for a lot of people. And I think maybe that's the message. And yeah, you can go check it out on the Happy website. Now, the reason it's happy is because if you remove the Y and put an I in the word happy, you have AI, right?
Oh, you know what? That's good.
Come on, Eric. Dude, you should have been on top of that, man.
See, I knew you were a neurosurgeon for no reason.
Well,
man, that's good. That's good.
It's funny because a rabbi actually put a quote in my book, which, let me see if I can find it, because I just happen to have my book right here. But that really was because I'm actually signing these books for a woman who asked me to. But this rabbi, he said, Dr. James Doty, a well-known surgeon, uses the twin scalpels of wisdom and compassion to operate on our consciousness. He's a surgeon of the soul, an atheist who will have you gasping, "Oh my God." This book is an explosion of grace and enlightenment. And hopefully that's something that we share, our goal to be surgeons of the heart.
Yeah.
Okay,
Wow,
my friend, you be well. We'll be in touch, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Dr. Doty. I appreciate you. It's a pleasure. It's an honor. You already know what it is. Stay inspired.
There we have it. And if you want a hat to support Eric's work, send him an email, and he'll send you a hat to stay inspired. Now I'm hawking your goods here. What have you turned me into?
I appreciate you.
Again, thank you for being with us today. The Into the Magic Shop podcast can be found where you find your most popular podcasts, or you can find us at intothemagicshop.com.